Alright, boys and girls, welcome to Economics Prep by Examlify. This is a very special session because today we are going to be solving the complete 2025 paper for CUET-PG Economics. Now, before we actually begin with the test, I just want to make a very small yet special announcements. All of the mock tests and all other bundles are now live on examlify.com. You can go and check them out for yourself. The mock tests can be very helpful for you, so be sure to check them out. Now, let us begin with the 2025 paper. Okay, so let us take a look at the very first question, which is a very easy question. It just says that you are given with a demand function. You are given that at the equilibrium the price is this and the quantity are this. So you also have the equilibrium price and quantity. You do not even have to find that. You just have to calculate the consumer surplus. Very easy. First of all, let us just try to understand this graphically. What are we trying to say? You already know that. Let us just say that this is our demand function. Okay, just take any straight line or any line. Okay, you are also given the price. This is your equilibrium price, which is P naught. You are also given with your equilibrium quantity, which is Q naught. So what is the consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is equal to the area above the price and below the demand curve. You already know this, right? That is what it is. So just shade that region out. This is what we are trying to calculate. And how can we do that? You know the price and quantity already, so you know the area of this smaller rectangle, right? So all you have to calculate is this entire area, and then what you can do is subtract the area of this rectangle from this entire area. And how do we calculate this whole area from this point to this point? We just calculate the area under the curve, under this curve, under the demand curve. If you calculate the area from this point to this point, you are going to get this exact area that you are looking for. And how do you do that? You integrate the curve. These are things that you should be knowing already in depth. Okay, these should be on your fingertips right now. So you just integrate the curve and you write that basically the formula for this is going to be consumer surplus is going to be the integration of dq minus p naught q naught that you already have. So now all you have to do is just integrate the demand function. So, and also you already know the interval as well. We are integrating with q, so from 0 to q naught, this is the region, right? So from 0 to 9, so this is 110 minus q square. So just integrate that, nothing too difficult about it. You will get 110 cube upon 3 and from 0 to 9, and you are subtracting from this the area, which is 29 multiplied by 9. That will give you something like 261. So let us take this to a new page. So what you get here is, after you calculate, I'll just do the calculation part also. So that is 110 multiplied by 9 minus 9 cube upon 3, and then when you put in 0, you'll just get 0. So minus 261. So the final answer that you are going to be getting is 747 minus 261, which is 486. This is your final answer. So a very easy question. Just it required some concepts that you should already be knowing, right? Let us move on. Okay, so read the second question. It says that Pareto optimality criterion implies fulfillment of all of the following conditions, except we are trying to look for the wrong option. So let us just look at these one by one. The first one says marginal rate of transformation between any two goods is equal to marginal rate of substitution between the same two goods. Basically, we are just saying MRT is equal to MRS. You should know what these mean, and I'll just give you a quick comparison as well. Let us say that the marginal rate of transformation is greater than the marginal rate of substitution for, let us say, good X. For good X. What does this mean? So first of all, marginal rate of transformation just means that how much of good Y you have to give up in order to produce one more unit of good X. Okay, so as a society, when we look at this in the equilibrium in product mix, right? So when you are looking at it, you are saying that from the producer's point of view, you are saying that how much of good Y is to be now sacrificed in order to produce another unit of good X. Okay, but when you are talking about the marginal rate of substitution, you are now talking about it from the perspective of a consumer. You are saying that in order to consume one more unit of good X, how much of good Y will you have to sacrifice? Okay, so if we are talking about if MRT is greater than MRS, in very simple terms, you are just trying to say that you value good X less than its cost. Okay, because for marginal rate of substitution, you are saying that you will sacrifice your good Y to consume more of X. That means you value good X a lot. But for this one, you are saying that you have to reduce the production of good Y in order to produce more of X. Okay, so the cost of producing another X, the sacrifice of good Y, that is more than how much you are willing to sacrifice. So in this case, what you are going to do is that you will produce less of good X and more of good Y. Because now you do not value good X so much that you will sacrifice your Y for it. Okay, you will sacrifice less of Y. So similarly, if you reverse this condition, you will see that for good X, if your MRS is greater than your MRT, which means that you value your good X a lot, which is why you are going to produce more of good X because you still want more of it and you are still okay with producing less of Y. Okay, so that is what these two terms mean, and that is a very important clarification for you guys to make. Okay, so now obviously the first statement is absolutely true, that these two conditions will not be Pareto optimal because you can still move from your current combination of good X and Y and get higher satisfaction. Okay, so you are not at a Pareto optimal condition. So in these two cases, now the second option says that the economy is operating on the production possibility frontier. Yeah, you should already know this very well, that when you just have a PPF, if you are on a point that is outside of the PPF, then that is unattainable, and when you are below it, then you can still go above it. So always we choose a point on the PPF itself when we are trying to look for a Pareto optimal combination. Okay, so that is why this is also true. The third one just says that the production techniques embody the most efficient technology. Yes, that means that let us say that you are producing wheat, okay, and you have a much higher or much more optimal way of producing wheat, but you are not using that. You are using a much lesser or a suboptimal method to produce the wheat. Then are you on the PPF? Are you using your complete capabilities? No, you can still go higher, because with this newer and more advanced method you can produce wheat more efficiently. Okay, that is why it is an assumption of the Pareto optimality that your current production techniques is the most efficient that there are. Okay, whatever the most effective technology is in your economy. All right, so that is why this is also absolutely true. The income is distributed fairly among individuals. Guys, even without reading the three options, you should have been very easily able to answer this, because it is like one of the most common things that we say, that Pareto optimality does not justify fairness. Okay, it does not imply fairness. We can say that you have seen this many a times in the numerical examples, that let us say you have a combination of 10 0, and this is the utility, this is the combination. Okay, and these are the utilities. So from this, let us say that the utility function is something like max of AB. Another combination is 5 5, so this is the utility is 10, here it is 5. This is the, let us say, utility of A. Okay, so right now we are only talking about A and the utility of A. Tell me that if we move from 5 5 to 10 0, will that hurt the utility of A or not? Absolutely. Look at this, the utility for A is falling. The maximum utility of A is when he is getting all of the goods and B is getting nothing at all. Okay, so that is why we are seeing that when there is no fairness, when fairness in this case is absent, then our utility is optimized, and at this level we can say that this is Pareto optimal and this is not Pareto optimal. Okay, so you can very clearly see that income being distributed fairly is not at all our priority. Our priority is to keep efficiency inside of the system. That is all we care about. Okay, so that is why this was a very easy question. If you have studied the assumptions of Pareto optimality, you would have known this very well. Let us move on. Okay, so now let us read the third question. It says that the exports of a country is given by the exports of goods of a country. Let me highlight that. Is given as GT, and it has a growth rate of A by T. Its exports of services is given as ST, and it has a growth rate of B by T. What is the growth rate of total exports? All right, so I know that this question actually a lot of students found very difficult because they could not understand how to approach it. But in these types of questions, if you do get confused, just try to use logic. Okay, just first of all, do not panic and try to use logic. You know that x is equal to g plus t, plus s. You know that x is total exports, g is the exports of goods, and s is the exports of services only, right? So now you also know that they are all a function of t. So I'll just write x also as a function of t because g and s are. Okay, so now what you have already is that the growth rate of g. If you have done like the solo model and whatever the growth models are, basically you would know that the growth rate of any variable is equal to the derivative of that variable with respect to t. T is time basically, and that multiplied by 1 upon g, or the reciprocal of that, right? There is a long process to find that as well. We take logs and we do some differentiation with respect to time, and we can reach at this point either this, or you can just memorize very easily that x dot upon x is the growth rate of any variable x, where x dot is nothing but dx upon dt. Okay, so this is the mathematical derivation. If you want to understand the logic behind the mathematical derivation also, then basically we are just saying that as time passes by, as time is passing, how much this has changed as a percentage of the total variable. Okay, we are just trying to find the growth rate. How do you find a growth rate? You take the value that you already had, and then you find the change inside of that value, and then you take that change as a part or as a fraction of that total value to find out what was the growth out of that total, and then you can multiply it by 100 also to find the actual percentage. But right now we are just talking about the growth rate. Okay, so that is something to think about. So now this you already know. Okay, this part we have figured out. So if you did not know this, or if you were weak in growth models, then you could not solve this. So now let us try to write this down, use this equation to solve it. Okay, I'll just take it to a new page. What I'm doing is differentiating on both sides with respect to t. So now you'll get dxt upon dt is equal to dgt upon dt plus dst upon dt. Now look at this. You already know that this part is given to you as a upon t. What you can just do is that you take 1 upon g to this side. So dg upon dt is equal to ag upon t. ag og. Okay, so now what you have is ag upon t plus, similarly for this one as well, you'll just see that this is b by t, right? B by t is equal to, I'm very sorry for that joke. It was not my intention to do that. It was very lame. So b by t was equal to ds upon dt multiplied by 1 by s, right? So you just send s to the other side. You get bs upon t. Bs upon t. So this is dxt upon dt. Now you already have the value. Only one more thing that you cannot forget is that we also had a 1 by x here. So we just multiply 1 by x on both sides and you have the answer. That is literally just your answer, ag plus bs upon tx. There you go. Let us match this with the options. The fourth option is your right answer. Okay, so that was a fairly easy question. The only thing that you needed for this was that how to find out the growth rate. Okay, and then you could have easily solved it. Let us move on. Okay, so look at the fourth one. It says that which of the following is not correct. Again, a lot of students miss this. Please read the question carefully. Yeah, the first statement says if fx is quasi concave, then minus fx is quasi convex. 100% true. This is a key property of convexity and concavity. You should know this. Okay. Now, secondly, if fx is a linear function, then it is quasi concave as well as quasi convex. 100% true. Again, it is not just quasi concave and quasi convex. It is also convex and concave. You already know that convexity is a much stricter preference. It is a stricter, a condition than quasi convexity. Okay, similarly, concavity is a stricter condition than quasi concavity, right? So, a linear function is both of these, so obviously, it is also these, right? So, any concave function is quasi concave, but the converse is not true. 100% true. 100, as I just said, that concavity is a stricter condition. So by default, if it is concave, it will be quasi concave. And if you have prepared for the IITs, you will know that this was actually a question that has been asked in jam before. Okay, this part. So similarly, the last statement says it any convex function is quasi convex and converse. No, that is the wrong statement. Okay, the converse is not true either for concavity or for convexity. This is a fairly easy part. Just understand how the graphs are supposed to work, and I have covered that in the notes. So if you need clarity, you can use that, or you can just watch a video on that. Okay, let us move on to the next one. So it says that assuming the production function is homogeneous of degree 1 and Euler's equation holds, if MPL is greater than APL, then what happens to either MPL or MPK? Okay, so first of all, write down the Euler's equation. What does it say? Just mathematically, if you try to understand it, the formula will tell you something like fx multiplied by x plus fy multiplied by y is equal to r multiplied by f. Now, here understand each of the terms. F is the complete function, okay? It is any function. Then r is the degree of homogeneity. Okay, it is the degree of homogeneity. Then similarly, fx is just sigma f upon sigma x. So this multiplied by x plus sigma f upon sigma x. We are trying to take the partial derivative of f with respect to x and f. Okay, any two variables basically that we have is equal to rf. Okay, so now let us take that to our equation, whatever we have. We know that the total equation is equal to q, which is the total output. It is equal to mpl multiplied by l plus mpk multiplied by ky. mpl is what? Sigma q upon sigma l, right? Logically, we are just saying that if the input is multiplied by its marginal product on both sides for every input, then that will just give you the total output, right? Now we know that from the question we are trying to compare mpl and apl. apl is q by l, right? So if we just divide both sides by l, you will get, this will cancel here, so you will get q is equal to mpl plus k by l into mpk. Let me take this to a new page. Okay, so you are saying q is equal to mpl plus k by l mpk, q by l, sorry. So this means apl is equal to mpl plus k by l into mpk. Now what you are given in the question itself is that mpl is greater than apl. This part is greater than this. So what happens is we take this to this side, right? We take mpl to LHS. Whatever you will get, it will be a negative value because mpl is greater than apl. So on this side you will get something like k by l mpk is less than 0. because whatever this value is, it is negative. So now you can just write that neither capital nor labor can be negative. So this is going to be definitely a positive value. What you can conclude is MPK is less than 0. That is your answer. MPK will be negative. Third one is the right answer. Okay. So these are just some logical deductions that you can do. You just have to go step by step. They are just testing if you know the basics. Okay, the questions in the CUET-PG exam is are actually very beautifully phrased. If you really look at them, they are testing your basics, but they ask them to you in such like in a they combine different topics in such a way that people get really confused and they think that the difficulty is very high. Okay, so look at the sixth question now. It says that which of the following is incorrect about the problem of externalities? A very basic question, just asking some of the properties of externalities in general. So they may be reciprocal or unidirectional. Absolutely, any externality can negatively affect only one person also, or two parties can both be harmed by one another as well. Okay, that is, we know, we have a lot of examples. We have the like the downstream upstream, the river example, where there is a factory that is upstream, and then downstream there is a farmer, a fish, like anything, any person who is doing his business, and he is negatively being affected by the water pollution that the factory is doing, right? So here the factory is not losing anything. So this is a unidirectional externality. Okay, so the second option says they refer to an interdependence between two parties that operates outside of the price mechanism. That is literally the definition of an externality. What they are just trying to say is that when we do not take the price into consideration, that there is still an interdependence between two parties that otherwise don't have anything to do with each other, but because an externality is being created between the two, that is what is creating the interdependence. So yes, exactly, I mean, that is just the logic behind it. Then they may be marginal or inframarginal. Yes, that is also right. This means that when it is marginal, it means that the marginal external benefit or the marginal external cost, it is not equal to 0. Okay, that means that per unit of output, an externality is being created per unit of output. For example, you are sitting next to someone and you are smoking a cigarette. For every cigarette, you are negatively affecting the person next to you. But what about inframarginal? This means that the marginal external cost is 0. That just means that per unit there is no harm. Like for every single unit of your output, there is no harm to the person to whom you are doing or making a negative externality. But in lump sum or in total, you can harm them. Okay, but not per unit. That is just what it means. The fourth one says that the process of internalization of the negative externalities requires that both the parties must gain. That is absolutely false. For example, if we just take the exact same example, that a farmer is down here, a fish farmer is down here, and a factory is up here. Okay, the factory is upstream. So if because of this water pollution, the government decides to step in and put a pollution tax on the factory, this internalization, the externality has now been internalized, but the farmer gained because of it, because now the factory is going to do less of pollution, but the factory did not gain anything out of it. They just have to produce less and they have to pay the tax. Okay, because they were the polluter in this case. They were the polluter. So it is definitely not at all necessary that when you are internalizing a negative externality, that both parties must gain at all times. No, that is not true at all. So let us move on. Okay, so let us read the seventh one. It says that the marginal cost of a firm is given here. Fixed cost is given. Find the total cost function. You want to find TC, which is equal to TFC plus TVC. TFC is also already given to you. You just need to find TVC. Okay, so how do you do that? You have MC already. Just integrate MC. That is all you have to do. Okay, so MC is given as 2E0.2Q. So this is after differentiating E0.2Q. Okay, but when you are trying to integrate this, you are going to go one level even behind this. So E 0.2q, and you just take this in the denominator, right? So you will see a pattern that we are just multiplying 0.2 every time, right? Because that is how this function works. So you'll just get 2 divided by 0.2, so that will be 10 upon 2 e to the power of 0.2q plus c. Okay, this is your cost function. Now what a lot of students had made the mistake in the actual exam as well, and they still do, is that what that they'll say that the fixed cost is already given as 75. I'll just put that here and I'll get the right answer, and that is also given in the options. So I'm right, but you are absolutely wrong. Why? Because you first have to put 0 here. And why? Look at this. When the output is 0, the cost at 0 output is what? It is the total fixed cost. So now look at this. At 0, you are getting 10 e raised to the power 0 plus c is equal to 75. You are already given this. So c of our equation, the c of our equation is 75 minus 10. So that is 65. Okay, this 10 will go here because e raised to the power 0 is just 1. This will go here and it will be subtracted. So this c is 65. So your actual cost equation, total cost function, is 10 e raised to the power of 0.2q plus 65. So A is right, and lot or most of the students had marked 3. Alright, so let us move on. To read the eighth one, it says that which of the following is excluded from headline inflation to arrive at core inflation. Very simple. You just subtract food inflation and you subtract energy. Why? Because food and oil prices and all of the energy related prices are highly volatile. They keep changing very fast. That is why at core inflation we do not focus at food or energy inflation. So here energy is going to be the right option. Okay, so that is just a part of inflation which is directly mentioned in the syllabus. So you have to cover it as much as you can in the Indian context also. CPI, WPI, all of that. Okay. So the ninth one says that which of the following is not considered in calculation of GDP: inventory, stock, wages, brokerage or commission on purchasing second-hand goods, sale, purchase of second-hand goods. Yeah, I don't know what else to say except that it is a very easy question, and these types of questions where you are getting free marks, please do not make a mistake in these. Do not make any silly mistake. That is why keep revising your basics. I don't know what students are doing. They are trying to cover 10 books, 20 books. I just keep seeing these messages everywhere that send this book, send that book. You guys are trying to do a PhD or something. Look at the level of the questions. Try to cover the basics first of all. Every question that we've done till now covers a basic concept that is just asked in a kind of a combination. They are trying to combine different concepts, but you cannot say that any of that concept was very tough or something that you have never heard of. Okay, so look at the actual paper that they are making first of all. So now let us move on. Okay, so let us read the 10th one now. It says that in the case of classical economics, an increase in the nominal money stock. So you already know that when we are talking about classicals, your aggregate supply curve is vertical and your aggregate demand is downwards. So this is your price level and your quantity is already at the full employment level. Your output is fixed at full employment level. Now let us see what happens if the nominal money stock rises. Just write down the quantity theory equation. You already know MV is equal to PY. You know that for classicals Y is already fixed at full employment level and the money supply is increasing. V is a constant. Okay, the velocity is given, it is not changing. So what happens when this changes? Only P can change. P will increase, the price is going to increase. So our price was at, if we say P naught, our new price is going to be at P1. And how will that happen? Obviously your supply curve cannot shift, so your demand curve is going to shift. It is going to shift to the right. This is what is going to happen, and this is where your new price is going to be at the equilibrium level. So this is wrong. Change in this is wrong. This is wrong. Fourth is the right option. Okay, so let us move on. So the 11th one says that which of the following does not constitute liabilities of commercial banks in India. We are not talking about liabilities of the consumer but of a commercial bank. So from the perspective of a bank, you can obviously say that borrowing is a liability, time and demand deposits is a liability, because what is the time and demand deposits? It is just the money that the consumer has kept with the bank, which the bank will eventually have to repay whenever the consumer demands it, right? So what about the paid up capital and reserves? This is again a liability. Okay, the only option that you will see is the odd one out is money at call and short notice, because this is actually money that the bank is lending to another bank, and it is a short term type of a loan which the bank can call back whenever it wants to. Okay, this is not a liability. So C is your right answer, or the third option. Okay, let us move on. The 12th question says that which of the following is not correct about effects of taxes on income and output. So the first option is income taxes lower the multiplier effect. What is the formula of multiplier when there is taxes and when there is not? When there is no taxes, you can write that the multiplier is just 1 upon 1 minus C, where C is the MPC, or the marginal propensity to consume. When there is taxes, the formula becomes this. Okay, so T, small t, is the tax rate. So which of these is a bigger value? If we just give some values to this, let us take C is equal to 0.5. You should know this already, by the way. I'm just trying to give you an example. If you are confused in the exam how you can try to figure that out, so you just take T to be anything. Let's take it as 0.5. So here you will get 1 upon 0.5 is equal to 2, and here you will get 1 upon 1 minus 1 by 2 upon 1 by 2. So this will be 1, so this will become eventually 4 by 3, right? So as you can see that when there was an inclusion of taxes, the multiplier actually fell down. Okay, so it lowers the multiplier effect is absolutely true. We are trying to find the not correct statement. Inclusion of taxes makes the aggregate demand curve steeper, and increases the multiplier. We have already seen that the multiplier does not increase, instead it falls. So you already have your wrong statement, which is the second one. Okay, so let us move on. So the 13th one says that which of the following is not correct about residential investment? Again, a topic explicitly mentioned in the syllabus. Please, at least the topics that are clearly given to you in the syllabus, do not skip those or try to cover as many as possible. Okay, so the first one says that it depends on the net we'll just try to solve this completely logically. Okay, I'll tell you the actual equation after it, but first of all just tackle it like you don't know anything else. You are just a citizen who is living in India and you just have your brain. Now let's see. It depends on the net real return obtained by owning housing. If you are looking to do an investment for a house, if you want to buy a house, uh, will your investment depend on the net real return obtained by owning the house or not? Right? So this sounds very true. Okay, so we'll just put a small tick because it sounds true to us right now. Okay, so this statement I feel like is not phrased in the best manner. I'm not entirely sure about it, but it can be right. Okay, and the reason it can be right is because if we just focus on the high inflation part, because if the nominal interest rate is very high, you will hesitate in investing in a house, because you will see that the loan amount that you have to return because of the high interest rate, it will increase very fast. But because of high inflation, the real cost of return is going to fall. Okay, so that is definitely going to be encouraging housing investment. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be written as low nominal interest rate or not, but this can be true if the inflation is strong enough to even overpower your high nominal interest rate. Okay, now the thing is that even if you consider this as a gray statement, okay, this is somewhere in the gray area. Look at the third one. The demand for housing is insensitive to the nominal interest rate. Does that make sense to you? You are buying a house, okay, the nominal interest rate is what you are going to be talking about with the bank. You are not going to consider as a consumer the real interest rate upfront. Okay, first of all, you will think about the nominal interest rate, that which is definitely going to affect the demand of housing. Even the real interest rate is sensitive to the nominal interest rate. So how is housing not going to be sensitive to it, right? So this is absolutely nonsense. You could have solved it just by pure logic. Last one says, and definitely this statement would have confused you a little bit because it is confusing. Last one says cost of owning a house rises almost okay, so now let us look at the equation. The user cost of capital, the user cost of capital for this house is equal to R plus depreciation minus inflation, expected inflation. Okay, so this is your formula where R is the real interest rate written as nominal interest rate minus inflation rate. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. So the cost, yes, this is absolutely true, that as your real interest rate will rise, your cost of owning a house will also increase almost proportionately. Okay, and similarly, 3, you can also disprove why this same formula, because when your component of cost of capital includes nominal interest rate, then definitely it is sensitive to it. Alright guys, so the 14th one says that the following are the reasons for firms to hold stock of inventories, except which of the following again is the wrong one. So to meet future demands for goods, obviously, yeah, why would a firm hold stock of inventories? Just think about it logically. Obviously, first of all, this is mentioned in the syllabus straight up. Even if you haven't read upon it, just try to answer it logically. Okay, you will be able to get to the answer because the questions are very easy. Look at it. It is more costly for a firm to order goods less frequently in large quantities than to order small quantities frequently. It is like, you have heard of wholesale. Everybody knows what wholesale is, right? You get the goods for a cheaper price if you order a large amount or a large quantity in just one order, right? And if you keep ordering smaller quantities in higher frequencies, then that is just retail, where you get goods for a higher price, right? In Hindi you call it thok, right? Or you call it wholesale. So to say this is absolutely absurd, this is absolutely wrong, just look at the statement carefully and you'll very easily understand that it is clearly wrong. Then to smoothen the production process, obviously you keep the stock of inventory so that when the next batch comes in, until then you can keep selling smoothly, right? Similarly, the last one says that some inventories are held as an unavoidable part of the production process. Obviously, are very general and vague statements, so it is all there is also nothing wrong with it. So let us move on. Then the 15th one is saying that commercial banks are subject to statutory liquidity requirement, or just SLR. Which of the following is not part of the SLR? Required reserves, treasury bills, unencumbered government and other approved securities, current account balances with other banks. So you already know, yeah, there is not a lot that I can add here. SLR currently is rated at 18% of net demand and time liabilities. It is it is to be kept with the bank itself. It is under the Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Okay, so these are some things that you should be remembering about the SLR, right? So treasury bill, yes. Approved securities, yes. Current account balances with other banks, yes. It is to be kept with the bank itself, right? So required reserves, this is referring to the cash reserve ratio or the reserve ratio, and it is phrased quite in a weird way, but if you just logically think about it, you will be able to get to the answer. Okay, so look at the 16th question now, which says that which of the following is not correct about the effectiveness of monetary and fiscal policies under perfect capital mobility. Okay, so first of all, it says that under fixed exchange rate, monetary policy is powerless to affect output. So what I'm going to do here is that I am just going to be attaching our short notes here. So here you can clearly see that in the first case of perfect capital mobility and rise in money supply, so you can see what happens. First of all, at the new point of equilibrium, which will be at the newer LM curve and the IS curve at point B, at that point the interest rate is going to be lesser than the global interest rate. So at that point the demand for rupee is going to fall, so that will lead to a depreciation, right? But because the exchange rate is fixed, the central bank is going to come in and act, and it is going to buy back rupee so as to decrease the supply of rupee in the market, so that the value of rupee again goes up. Okay, and that little appreciation is going to counterbalance the depreciation, so that the interest rate is fixed. Then what happened? First of all, rupee came into the market, the money supply increased, then again the reserve bank took out the rupee or the liquidity from the market so as to uh, force an upward pressure on the rupee. So that is why the LM curve is going to shift back, because the money supply again decreased. So nothing happened here. The monetary policy in this case is going to be ineffective. And you should remember this, that in cases of fixed exchange rate, the monetary policy is indeed ineffective, right? So similarly, for you can now look at the second option, which says that under the fixed exchange rate, central banks, okay, this is we'll look at the third one first. Says that under the fixed exchange rate, fiscal policy is highly effective. So you can just look refer to case 2 here. Then the third one says that floating exchange rate, monetary expansion will lead to currency depreciation, increased exports, and increased output. Absolutely, exactly in that order as well. So you can look at case 3 here as well. Okay, so we have summarized every single case under the Mundell-Fleming model, and all of these are going to be very important for your exam as well. Now, if you look at the second option, you are going to say that, sir, there is nothing like an independent monetary policy that is mostly mentioned inside of the notes for Mundell-Fleming model. And yes, you are true as well. The thing is that either you can answer this logically if you have understood the Mundell-Fleming model, it is a very easy option, or you can answer this using the impossible trinity. This is what has been asked here. This is exactly what they have asked. Okay, the impossible trinity is your actual question here. The Mundell-Fleming model options are all right. The only incorrect one was under the impossible trinity. And what does it say? It says that three things. The first, second, and third. First one is fixed exchange rate. Then you have perfect capital mobility. And the third one is independent monetary policy. Independent monetary policy. You cannot have all three in one economy. You can at most have any two of these. That is what the impossible trinity says, and that is what this option is also saying, that you are already told that there is perfect capital mobility. Then they are saying that there is fixed exchange rate. Now, can you also have an independent monetary policy for the Reserve Bank? Absolutely not. Second option is absolutely incorrect. Okay, so if you want to know what an independent monetary policy is, it is just basically it just means that even if the exchange rate goes up or down, the Reserve Bank does not care. It will pursue its own monetary policy according to its own needs. For example, in the example we just saw, that when there is perfect capital mobility and now there is an increase in the money supply, so that is what the Reserve Bank has chosen to do. But because of the fixed exchange rate, again the Reserve Bank has to buy back the rupee. Okay, so that is why its monetary policy is dependent on the exchange rate. That should not be the case under an independent monetary policy. But if you have these two, you can never have these two. Similarly, if you have these two, you cannot have this. Similarly, you can get it that at most you can have any two of these. Okay, so let us move on. Okay, so the 17th one says that which of the following is not correct about steady state equilibrium for economy according to new classical growth theory. So basically you are asked about the solo steady state equilibrium. So the growth rate of output is endogenously determined inside of the model, from inside of the model. So you know that if you just read the second statement also, you'll know growth rate of output is equal to population growth rate. Okay, so this is right. And it is dependent on two things: either the population grows or there is a technological advancement, and both the growth of population and the growth of technology are exogenously determined or given to you from outside of the system, right? So that is why the first statement is wrong. Then growth rate of output is independent, yes, it is not dependent on the savings rate. Per capita GDP and per capita capital are constant, yes. So these are just some basically assumptions and results of the solo steady state equilibrium. So either you can memorize these, or you can understand these, or you can understand these numerically. It depends on you and what you prefer. Okay, we have included all of those in the notes as well. So let us move on. Then it says that in the Solos growth model, the output per capita is a function of. Okay, just write down what is output per capita. What is it? You have output, which is a function of capital and labor, your two inputs, right? You only have two inputs here. So if you want to find out what is uh, output per capita, that is, you divide both of these sides with the quantity of labor that you have. So this becomes k by l, this just becomes 1. Okay, so now you can just write this as small y, which is, so this is just a function of small k, because the 1 is just a constant value, so it is just a function of small k. And what is small k? Small k is capital labor ratio, right? So that is why you can just write that the first option is right here. So let us move on. Again, a very very simple question. You are just asked that you have a coin that you have flipped twice, and you have to find the probability of getting at least one head. So that means you can solve it two ways. The first one is that you can find the probability that of that you get two heads, plus ht, that you get heads first then tails, tails first then heads, and that is it. Then you can find out the probabilities of each of these events, then you can add it up to get your answer. Or what you can do is that you can take the total probability, that is 1, and subtract from it the probability that you do not get any head at all. So you get only tails on both of the attempts, right? So what is the probability of that? You get the probability of tails on the first flip is 1 by 2, second flip it's also 1 by 2. 1 minus 1 by 4, 3 by 4 is your answer. So that is your answer. Or you can go this way as well, that you get head z, so 1 by 4 plus again 1 by 4 plus 1 by 4, so 3 by 4. So this is a very easy question by the standards of any other exam. That is why the probability and maths part of the CUET is relatively very easy, right? So let us move on. So similarly, this one is also very easy. What is, they are just asking you to find the expectation of x, and x is this variable of which all of the values are already given. Expectation of x is nothing but, when we are talking about discrete uh, random variables, it is the summation of xi pi, where pi is the probability and xi is whatever values you are given. So the summation of all of those individual events and their probabilities. So minus 1, the probability is 1 by 8, plus 0, whatever you multiply it by, it will just give you 0, so ignore it. 2 multiplied by 3 by 8, so you get 6 by 8 minus 1 by 8. Your answer is 5 by 8, which is the second option. Let us move on. Then again, a very easy question. What is the geometric mean of 2, 4 and 8? So first of all, take the cube root and multiply 2, 4 and 8. You are going to be getting 32 into 2, 64. Cube root is nothing but 4. Your answer is 4. Okay, let us move on. Then the 22nd question says that in correlation analysis, the two variables, for example x and y, are treated with distinction, are treated differently based on individual characteristics, treated symmetrically, or are they regressed? Okay, so basically this question has been asked in contrast with regression analysis. So my advice to you would be that in the stats part, especially, try to do all of the theory based parts that surround the correlation and regression analysis. For example, the properties of correlation, the properties of correlation coefficient, the properties of regression coefficient, okay, and the properties of regression analysis in the standard model. So what we do is that when you write the regression of y on x, that is not equal to the regression of x on y, and similarly their regression coefficients are also not equal. But when we are talking about correlation, even the correlation coefficient, if you write it as rxy or ryx, it is still going to be equal. Okay, because the covariance of xy or the covariance of yx is going to be the same thing. Similarly, if you just write sigma x or sigma y first, it won't matter. Okay, so that is why the variables are treated symmetrically in correlation analysis. Okay, so do all of the theoretical parts. The numericals are not asked, and if they are asked, they are very basic. Okay, so try to cover the basics as much as possible. This is a fairly easy question. If you just look at the options, also, you can just directly use them to get to the answer. So, specification error of the model, autocorrelation in regression model, correlation between dependent and known, the precision of an estimate. Why? Because you already know that may be standard error. Like for a sample, you will get the standard error as standard deviation divided by root n, right? Even if you just talk about the standard deviation, we are looking for the variability, the variance, right? The root of variance is the standard deviation. So you should already know that these dispersion measures are there to actually calculate how precise your estimate is. Okay, they are trying to figure out how much variability is there and how dispersed your estimate is from the actual mean. Okay, so like that is the whole point of it. That is why D is your correct answer here. Let us move on. So the 24th question says that if A and B are symmetric matrices of the same order, which of the following is not correct? And you have four options. In these kind of options, it is advised to start solving from the bottom, because many a times what the examiners do purposely is that they put the right answer on the bottom so that you just waste your time solving the first three. But it really depends. It is not that is not like set in stone or whatever. It is not that strict of a rule. Basically, it is just advised that you can try that out as well. Okay, so here obviously the last one is the right answer as well. And if we just start from the bottom, or okay, I'll just start from the top, whatever. A plus B is a symmetric matrix, so A plus B whole transpose should give you A plus B, right? And you already know A is equal to A transpose and B is equal to B transpose, because they are both symmetric matrices. So this is nothing but A transpose plus B transpose is equal to A plus B. So this is right. Then you have AB plus BA whole transpose. AB whole transpose plus BA whole transpose. So you should know the formula that AB whole transpose is equal to B transpose A transpose. So this is B transpose A transpose plus A transpose B transpose. So you can just write this as BA plus AB, because B transpose is equal to B and so on. So this is just AB plus BA. So yes, this is also equal. So this is also symmetric. Then if we take a new page, we are saying A plus A transpose ka whole transpose. So that is also just A transpose plus A. So that is the same thing again, same for B as well. But if you look at the last one, if you look at AB minus BA, now you take the transpose. This is fourth. Now you will get AB ka transpose minus BA whole transpose. So now let's see what we get. You get B transpose A transpose minus A transpose B transpose. So now if you write it, you will get BA minus AB, and we had AB minus BA. The signs have been reversed. This is Q symmetric. So that is why fourth one is not a symmetric matrix. Okay, so let us move on. Then the 25th question says that you are given two matrices A and B. You just have to find AB, and you like, I don't know what the point of this question is. I guess they have to set some questions that literally everyone can solve, or I'm not sure. So AB is just 132,840 multiplied by 59. So just calculate it, 1 into 5 plus 3 into 9, so that is 32, and so on. Just solve it. Okay, so let us move on. Then moving on to the 26th question. A question because of which there were literal protests, both online and offline, that were held against the NTA and the CUET-PG exam. This question, every single person who was taking the exam last year, I can completely guarantee you that after seeing this question for the rest of the exam, they were completely shook. This question did not leave their minds for the rest of the exam. They were just thinking, what have I just seen? What have I just witnessed? Total food grain production in million tons in India for the year 2022 to 23 is We are sitting in the exam hall in 2025. Each and every single one of the options has an answer up to 2 decimal points. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that some students would have tried to use some sort of logic and try to answer this. So I'm telling you right now, the answer here is D. Can you reach that answer? Can you reach the right answer by logic? Actually, I was lying, it was B. So if any one of you was trying to justify that, please don't try. Okay, so that is why my only advice to you is that just leave these types of questions. There is no point even in trying to attempt them. Okay, just read it, you'll understand it that it is not something that you should attempt, and just leave it. Okay, so if any coaching or any teachers tries to tell you that yaar ye to I had included this in my notes, just tell him yeah it is up to 2 decimal points, have some shame at least. Okay, so that is why let us move on and ignore this completely. Okay, and the 27th one says that in which of the following year India had a surplus in its current account. Okay, so yeah, this was like pretty answerable. So obviously the answer here is C. And the thing is that you could have answered this only if you were very deep into current affairs, and if you like any person who has prepared for competitive exams and so on, they will have an edge in these types of random questions, because it was in the news, because during the COVID lockdown and all, because India is a services based exporter, right? We export our services. That is why during the lockdown our exports did not fell that sharply, but our imports, our imports, they had fallen down a lot. Because of that, there was a surplus in this year, but before and after we have run a current account deficit. Okay, so that is the only logic that I feel like you could have used to get to the answer. But if you did not, do not be disappointed, just move on. Okay, there are a lot of questions, and your goal is not to score 300. Your goal is to score about 230 plus, or even if you are closer to 250, then that is very good. Don't get too greedy and just start answering random questions, all right? So again, the 28th question is going crazy about the direct tax to GDP ratio in the year 2020 to 23. The answer here is D. But in such types of questions, again, as I said, what you should do is just write down your own option and you should say the answer is this. Because who cares, dude? I'm just kidding. Don't answer these. Let us move on. Now the 29th one says with respect to land holding pattern. Yeah, this is important. Okay, this is something that you should not be getting wrong at all. It is mentioned in the syllabus and it is a very important topic. Medium farmers refers to those having a land holding in the range of what? I'll draw the whole table. And one more important thing that you should know is that similar to this, there are the MSME sectors, right? So for medium, small scale, and all of that, there is a table like lesser than 50 crores and more than that, and the profit and the income, right? The revenue or profit is something like that. I have included that in the notes as well. I have included this in the notes as well. These are some things that you should know. Okay, these are important general knowledge based questions. So here I'm going to draw the table. First of all, you get marginal farmers. Okay, you have small, you have semi medium, and you have medium, and you have large. Okay, you should know this. So for marginals you have below 1, you have below 1 hectare. Okay, then for small there is 1 to 2, for semi medium it is 2 to 4, medium is 4 to 10, and then above 10 you get large farmers or large land holdings basically. So we have been asked medium farmers, so that is why 4 to 10, third is your option. Okay, so let us move on. Okay, so now look at the 30th question, which says that which of the following is not the correct assumption on the Heckscher-Ohlin theory of international trade. Very important, again, all of the assumptions and the model itself. That first one says all we are just basically in the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, we are looking for factor endowment differences. Okay, so there are differences in factor endowment. Okay, nothing else. For example, when we talk about Ricardo, we say that there are differences in technology, because of which, even though we are talking about the same factor, we are only talking about labor in both country A and B. In both the countries, we are saying that they both have labor to make the goods. But let's say that country one has better technology to make cloth. Okay, so that is why you will say that they only need 5 labor to make one piece of cloth, while the second country has worse in the cloth making, so 15 labor, but it has better in sugar. Okay, or even slightly better or relatively better. Okay, while for Hexaroland what you are saying is that country one it is labor abundant, while country 2 is capital abundant. Okay, so based on that there are going to be differences in what to produce, right? So that is why if you look at the options, you will see that all resources are fully employed, absolutely. Then trade between two countries is balanced, yes. Both countries are produced under constant returns to scale, yes. Perfect competition also. Then demand preferences are not identical in both countries, wrong. Because if this was true, then this would become the basis of trade between the two countries. If the demand preferences themselves are not the same, that is why we assume them to be the same, so that we can only focus on factor endowments. Okay, that is the point of the model. Let us move on. Then look at the 31st, which says that which of the following is not true about classical and Keynesian aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So the first one says classical aggregate schedule is vertical. Yes. Keynesian aggregate schedule slopes upwards to the right. Yes. Classical AD schedule depends only on the level of money supply. Yes, MV is equal to PY. Y is fixed and V is fixed. So if the money supply changes, price will increase and AD will shift to the right. So this is also true. Then finally, Keynesian AD schedule depends only on the existing capital stock. No, you already know the equation is C plus I plus G plus net exports. So you already know that there are multiple factors on which the AD is dependent. Let us move on. Read the 32nd question. It says that which of the following is not correct about offer curves. So first of all, offer curves are actually an extension to the reciprocal demand theory that was given by J.S. Mill in 1848. And this itself has been asked in the CUET-PG exam about 2 to 3 times, and it has been asked once in match the following, where you had to match the theory with the name of the economist, and once where you had to match the year, I think, or something like that. Okay, so this is a very important thing, and obviously the offer curves are an extension to it. Now let us first of all read the options. Offer curves were devised and introduced in international ego by Marshall and Edgeworth. Yes, this is an extension to the reciprocal demand theory. This was actually J.S. Mill was a classical, so this is a classical theory, not a new trade theory. Okay, and offer curves were just an graphical extension to his theory. Then offer curves of a nation shows nation's willingness to import and export at various relative commodity prices. Absolutely, this is the definition of an offer curve. Try to understand it. Okay, we are saying that it is a curve that shows the nation's willingness to import and export. Okay, we are saying that at every single point we are seeing how much the nation is exporting and importing based on the relative prices of the two goods. So what all are we using? First of all, for production, in this we use the production possibility frontier. Okay, then to see the consumption side of things we use indifference curves, and finally we use the trade equilibrium. When we draw two price offer curves, we use the trade equilibrium to figure out the final import and export quantity. Okay, now before we move on, let us first read the remaining options. The offer curve of a nation can be derived from nation's production frontier. Yes, that is also true, as we just saw. Finally, an offer curve of a nation bends towards axis that measures commodity of its comparative disadvantage. Now let us try to understand this graphically. Okay, so on the y-axis, I'll just write y and x here. So what is y? Y is a good that you are importing. And why do you have to import this good? Why do you have to import y? Because you have a comparative disadvantage in good y. So that is why X is the good that you are exporting, because it is the good in which you have a comparative advantage. Okay, so now let us look at what the graph will look like. The curve is going to look something like this. So now if you look at the shape of it, it is kind of shaped like a bow, and it is bending towards the x-axis. The bend is towards the x-axis, right? Now actually there were like not a lot of students, but there were at least a couple of students that I know for a fact. One was in the actual test and one was in the mock test or in the practice test of this year, that they knew everything about this theory. When they drew the graph, they, instead of talking about the bend is here, right? They looked at the highest point and they said that this is going towards slightly the y-axis, so that must be the bend, and that is why this statement is true. But look, the bend is this part. The curve is bending here. This is the bend of it. That is what a bend means. Okay, so it is bending towards the good with the comparative advantage. So that is why this is going to be wrong, and this is your incorrect statement. But let us try to understand further that why it happens. First of all, to understand that, we need the slope of the offer curve. You know that it is nothing but dy by dx, so that is just imports by exports. So that is just imports by exports. You can write d also, that change in imports upon change in exports, but more importantly it is equal to the price of x upon the price of y. As we have already talked about this in the definition, we are primarily talking about the relative prices of these two commodities, and based on that we are seeing what happens to our export and import preferences. So at every single point of the curve will represent a different level of price ratio. Okay, so we are saying that at a very high point, for example point A, at this point the slope is very high, it is a steep curve. So this thing is very high. So the price of good x, price of our exporting commodity relative to price of good y, which is the price of our importing commodity, is very high and this is low. Okay, so that is why what happens is that we, as an exporting country of good x, we get very rich. We have now a lot of money because the good that we export, that has become expensive. Now why has that become expensive? You can also understand it this way, that when you have exported a lot of good x, okay, now at this point you are not willing to export a lot of good x. That is why the demand for good x now is rising and the price of it is increasing. Okay, so that is also one way to look at it. But regardless, we are just saying right now that price of X is increasing. So at this price, you as a country can import more of Y because you are getting richer and richer. That is why imports upon exports, this will also increase. Okay, so that is the logic behind it. So that is why sure, the highest point will move towards the y-axis, but the bend will go towards the axis of the good with the comparative advantage. So that is why the answer was D. Okay, so let us move on. Okay, look at the 33rd one now. It says that one of the conditions for national income or output to be in equilibrium is that the desired investment must equal the realized investment. If I is greater than IR, which means if in the desired investment is greater than realized, the different will result in which of these? So first of all, you should study this under the Keynesian investment. It is also mentioned in the syllabus. Otherwise, this question, in like if we talk about this specifically, it is very easy. You can solve it even if you have not read upon it. Okay, so just look at the options once. If your desired investment, how much you wanted to be invested, is greater than what was actually invested, what will happen? Will there be inventory accumulation? No. Will there be inventory shortfall? Yes. Will be there will there be no change in inventory stock? No. Will the tax rate increase? No. So this is the only option that makes sense, and that is also the answer. So let us move on. Then look at the 34th question. Again, a fairly easy question. Linear regression model is, and they are asking you whether it can be linear in the parameters or in the variables also. So let us take a few examples of this. So the standard linear regression model, is will look something like this. Okay, beta 1 plus. So you know that the parameters beta naught and beta 1, these cannot be non-linear if you are trying to make a standard linear regression model. Even if you take non-linear variables like beta naught plus beta 1 x square, even if you square up the variable, even then your model will remain a linear regression model. Okay, so now if you just look at the options, that may not be linear in parameters wrong, non-linear in parameters wrong, must be linear in variables wrong, linear in parameters and may be linear in variables. Yes, so that is the right answer. So these are just basics that you can find in any standard book as well. Okay, so let us move on. The 35th question says that which of the following does not hold at equilibrium price and quantity in perfectly competitive market? Total surplus gets maximized. Yes. Marginal benefit equals marginal cost. Yes. All competitive equilibria are Pareto optimal. Yes. First welfare theorem. The third option will say that minimum willingness to pay equals minimum acceptable price. This is not an equilibria condition in the perfectly competitive market. Minimum willingness to pay is basically the lowest intercept or the lowest point of the demand curve, right? Similarly, equals minimum acceptable price is just the lowest cost that the producer is willing to accept, and their being equal has nothing to do with anything in the perfectly competitive market. So that is not true at all. So let us move on. Then the next one says, in the context of Keynesian concept of a multiplier, a $1 increase in government spending financed by $1 increase in taxes will cause equilibrium income to increase, decrease, or what will happen to it. So first of all, write down the government multiplier and the tax multiplier. The government multiplier is 1 upon 1 minus c, and the tax multiplier is minus c upon 1 minus c. Okay, so the change in income will be equal to the change in the government expenditure multiplied by the government multiplier, or you can write it as this, plus change in tax multiplied by the tax multiplier. So this will be 1 multiplied by 1 minus c plus minus c upon 1 minus c. So this will become 1 minus c upon 1 minus c. That will become 1. So change in income is a positive 1. So it will increase by $1. So this is the right option. So let us move on. Okay, and the next one says that an individual's utility function for two goods, milk and butter, is given as this. The cost of each unit of the two goods is rupees 1, and individual's weekly budget is 5. Then his utility maximizing choice. Okay, so right off the bat, you should notice something, that when you try to find marginal utility for, what is it, milk, it will be 5. Similarly, marginal utility for butter is equal to be minus 10. What does this mean? This means that for every additional butter, or for every additional unit of butter that you consume, your utility is falling by 10. So will you consume even a single unit of this butter, which will give you a minus 10 in your utility, in your total utility? Why would you consume this? It is just literally decreasing your utility, right? So you will not consume butter at all. You will only consume this, and your budget is what? Your P1 is, so this is your budget equation, is equal to 5. So P1 is 1, so M is equal to 5. Okay, this is the maximum amount of milk that you can consume. So you will consume 5 units of M and 0 of butter. Just use logic, no need to sit there and start solving and use any formula to do anything at all. Just use straight up logic. Okay, so the next one says that the statement currency held in the hand yields no income is given by, the answer here is AC Pegu. So the answer here can be confusing, but if you think logically and in a chronological order, you know that Keynes built upon what the classicals had already said, right? So what Keynes said essentially was that in the liquidity preference, or the liquidity trap, he was saying that yes, currency held in the hands will yield no income, but if the interest rates are super low, or if there is speculation about the market and so on, then even if the currency held in the hand yields no income, even then people have their own reasons to still hold cash. Okay. And essentially before him the economists used to say that you should not hold cash because of its opportunity cost. So that is how you could have eliminated Keynes, and that is how you could have reached the answer, which was AC Pigou. Let us move on. Then the 39th question says that the decision by consumers to buy larger quantities of a good at each possible price cannot be caused by. Okay, and the first one says an increase in the number of buyers. We are talking about the consumers as a collective here, not the individual consumers. So yes, if there is a rise in the number of buyers, the consumers will buy larger quantities at each possible price. Similarly, a favorable change in the consumer tastes, so that is also very clearly right. Then consumer expectation that the prices will be higher in the future, yes, that will also force them to buy more right now. Rising incomes if it is an inferior good, very, very obviously the answer is this. Let us move on. Then the 40th question says that the total cost is CFX for a firm in short run. Which of the following expressions represents the correct relationship between MCAC? So if you just look at the options, every option mentions the slope of AC. Slope of AC. So this is something that we have to work around with, and we are just looking for the right option here, so not the wrong option. Okay, so first of all, write down what we already know. Total cost is given as C. AC is what? It is C, or total cost upon the quantity, which is here taken as X. Then MC is DC upon DX. Okay, so what we are looking for is slope of AC. So DAC by DX. So just solve this. Use the quotient rule. You will get into X minus C, that will become 1 divided by X square. So this becomes X into MC minus C upon X square. So X cancels, and C, one of the C upon X can be written as AC, right? So that will also simplify. So MC up minus AC upon X is the right thing. Okay, this is what it is. So first is wrong, second is wrong, then what else? Third says MC. Let's solve for these as well. MC is equal to AC. MC is equal to AC plus X into slope of AC. So MC minus AC. This will cancel out, and this will be, yes, so this is right. Then last option, if you just check, X square into MC minus AC upon X, right? This is what it was, equal to X square MC minus C. Okay, so this becomes, X goes on the other side, X square MC minus C upon X, X into MC minus AC. So no, this is also wrong. The left hand side does not match with the right hand side in the D option either. C is the only right option. Let us move on. Then look at the next one. If the probability function for a random variable X is given as fx is this, X is these values, find the sum of the values of probability distribution of X. Okay, so just substitute in the values. Again, the stats questions are on the easier side, as I already said, because we are just coming from the trauma of jam and gate, right? So that is why the stats and maths part there is completely unbearable. So here, that is why it looks like it is a blessing from God. Okay, so f1 is 4 by 15, f2 is 5 by 15, f3, please excuse my handwriting, I just want to write as fast as I can. So this is 6 by 15. So you add all of them up, you'll just get 1. That is your answer. Let us move on. Then the next one says calculate the standard deviation for the following sample 8, 7 and 9. Okay. So just write down the formula for variance first of all. Just write it down for standard deviation whole square upon n, right? The root of it. Now if we take the values here, you are going to find that the mean is what? It is 8. So just find out the all of the values. So it will be -1 square plus 0 plus 1 square divided by, now comes the important part, this is where most of the students are going to make a mistake. You have to read this word sample. Sample standard deviation, the formula is n minus 1. Okay, for just normal standard deviation it is n. Okay, so here you are going to write 3 minus 1 and the root of this whole. So this is going to be 2 upon 2. This is going to be root 1. That is your answer, which is the third option. So just a very easy question. Just you have to know what a sample mean is, what a sample standard deviation is, and so on and so forth. Then which of the following is not a type of non-random sampling? Which is not a type of a non-random sampling? So the first one, third one and fourth one, these are all non-random sampling methods. The second one is a probability random sampling method. Okay, it is a fairly easy question, but a lot of students were actually complaining about this. Sampling is directly explicitly mentioned in the syllabus of CUET-PG. It was mentioned last year, it was mentioned even the year before. Okay, so that is why I have told you guys every single time that in CUET-PG they are not focusing on the numericals. They are focusing on theory based concepts from these parts from where mostly numericals are asked in other exams. Okay, so if you try and go into the depth of sampling numericals and formulae, you are just wasting your time. You should just cover those formulae or just know and understand the basics. But first of all, you should cover the theory part in more depth, types of sampling and the definition, and all of that should be crystal clear to you. So here the answer was cluster sampling, which is a probability random sampling method. Here what you do is that you divide the population into different cluster groups and you select a random cluster. A cluster is selected randomly, okay, and all of the units in the selected cluster are studied and we do tests on that. Okay, so that is what that is, and that is the right answer as well. Let us move on. 44th one says, according to monetarist thought, the natural rate of unemployment at output is not determined by. So this is also important. It was led by Friedman. So you should read upon the monetarist thought as well. Not the most important topic, but yes, if you have time at hand, you should read about this. Okay. So according to the monetarist thought, the natural rate of output is dependent on real supply side factors. Like what? Like capital stock, like the size of labor force, like the level of technology, and not the aggregate demand. Okay, so that is also something that you can read further about. So let us move on. The 45th question, expenditure towards maintenance of embassies and diplomatic missions are included in which of the following account of BOP? So what kind of expenditure is this? The maintenance of embassies. We are not setting up new assets. You are not setting up a land and putting up a new embassy. You are maintaining it. And diplomatic missions, you are just sending your people abroad or whatever. So this is all part of services. And where would you put the services expenditure in? You will put that in current account, not in reserves, not in errors and omissions account, not in the capital account, right? So let us move on. So look at the 46th question now. Arrange the chairman of the finance commissions as per their year of appointment. Their year of appointment in chronological order from oldest to latest. Okay. So year of appointment doesn't matter. We are just asking that which finance commission came first and which one came later on. So yes, this is a completely ridiculous question, because the thing is that even if you knew the chairman of the 15th Finance Commission, who was N.K. Singh, okay, even if you know that much, you can only eliminate the third option. You still have three options from where you cannot answer. Okay, so for you to answer this, you also have to know that in 2007 it was Vijay Kelkar who headed the commission, and even then, okay, even then you cannot answer it. Even then you have two options. So now you have to know every single one basically. So the answer here is actually two. So yes, this is a completely ridiculous question. Even though the Finance Commission is directly mentioned in the syllabus, we do not expect you to study at this level, and I don't recommend it. I don't teach it. So the answer is B. But for the 16th Finance Commission, what you should know is that the devolution of taxes between state and center, how much is it? Read upon the 41% and why it was cut down from 42. And you should know the chairman of the 16th Finance Commission. Okay, so his name starts with A. You have to tell me in the comments who this person is. Okay, let us move on. So again, a very difficult question. You have to tell the chronological order from oldest to latest of all of these theories. You cannot answer this. You cannot answer this unless you have studied these theories specifically in a chronological order. We have made a complete PDF in where we have just put the economists and their theories in a chronological order in a table from oldest to latest. Every single one of the important theories are there. But unless you have studied those, you cannot answer this type of question. So my advice again, that if you have not studied those, please do not try to just randomly guess. And I'll show you why. You should know the Eli Heckscher theory. What is this? This is not some random theory. Who the hell is this Heckscher? It came out in 1919. This is the foundation of the Heckscher-Rollin theory. Okay, then this one you should know, that I mean, I don't expect you to know the exact year, but you should know that it came after the Heckscher-Rollin theory as part of the new trade theory. It is the factor price equalization theory, very important. Okay, the that was given by Samuelson. Then these two I do not expect you to know. Now I'll tell you why this was hard. Even if you say that Heckscher came first, you can only eliminate the first option. Okay, even after that, if you know for a fact that Samuelson came somewhere after this, okay, after Heckscher came Samuelson, but you don't know exactly when. Now you don't know whether these came between them or after them. That is why it will be very difficult for you to answer. If they had kept the options in such a way that only by knowing that this came first you can answer it, then sure, go for it. But in this exact situation, no, you shouldn't answer this unless you know all of these. The right option here is the third one. Okay, so again, if you have time, please go for the short notes that we have made. It will help you. Otherwise, you can just skip these. Let us move on. Then look at 48. Again, a question of the chronological order. These types of questions were filled in the 2025 paper, which is why most of the students were very sad and upset, because this was not seen before, right? There were some questions, but it wasn't the case that the entire paper is going to be filled with these, right? So we do not expect the next paper to be filled with these as well, but definitely you should understand the chronology once. Okay, so let us look at the options now. Now, full disclosure, I did not know all of these in the actual exam. If you just read the question, it is just asking you to put these financial institutions in year of establishment from oldest to latest. What I knew in the exam for a fact was that this was established in 82. The reason being, I had done a college project on this. Okay. Secondly, I knew that IDBI is older than NABARD. Okay, now I did not know the year. Now I know it is 1964. So that is why if you just look at the options, what I can do is I can write DA. That D comes before A. So if D comes before A, I can eliminate this. I can eliminate this. So all I am left with is 3 and 4. Okay, now I have to fit these two in the middle. Now every time when you are left with two options, if you can eliminate two options sure shot, you know those 100%, and you can eliminate two, any two, you are left with two, always attempt that question, because you are down to a 50-50. Okay, if you want to do a blind guess, you do akkad bakkad bombay bomb, whatever you want to do, please attempt that. Okay, so what I did was that I tried to use logic here. If you look at the third option, this says that B comes last. The Industrial Finance Corporation of India comes last. If this institution came after NABARD, I felt like I would have heard of it. That is what I felt like, because from 1980 onwards, because we study the LPG reforms also, we study the post 80 period in its entirety. I just felt like I would have heard about it. That is why I said that this one sounds wrong and this one sounds right. That first came B. In what year is it? It is 1948. Then came D, which is this. Then came C, which is this. The year of this is 1971, but this was then changed and this was reformed. It was given a new name and all. So that happened in 1985. But the year of establishment in its original form was in 71 only. So I did not know any of this during the exam. I'm telling you this now. But logically, I could reach the right answer. Okay, so that is what you have to do. You have to play smart in the CUET exam as well. This is not an exam of knowledge. This is an exam of who can attempt the most questions with their peripheral knowledge, or with their existing knowledge. That is why if you want, you can watch my exam solving tips and tricks video as well. That can help you. So let us look at the next one. The 49th one says that as per Union Budget of 24-25, arrange the following sources of revenue in ascending order in terms of their contribution to overall revenue of the central government for 23-24. So basically, this stays the same every year. In every budget, you will see that this will stay the same. So you just have to memorize this. The right option here is 4, which is C, D, A, B. So union excise will come first, then comes corporate tax, then GST, and finally you will get income tax. Okay, so fourth is the right answer here in ascending order. And there are also some other important facts that you should know. Not only the sources of revenue for the central government, but also the sources of expenditure. Okay, the topmost sources of expenditure, we have included all of these in the public economics notes and in the taxation part also. So these are some of the things that can be important from the budget also. Okay, so let us move on. Then the 50th one says arrange the following theories in chronological order from oldest to latest. Okay, so this one is easy. So this one came first, quantity theory of money, then Cambridge, then Hugo Keynesian, and finally the modern quantity theory of money. So BCAD, third option is right. Okay, so these are just some things you have to memorize. Moving on. Then arrange the following sectors in descending order as per union government capital expenditure. Okay, so this has been asked before. I forgot about that. So this can be important again as well. This year the capex was asked. The revenue expenditure can also be important. The components and so on and so forth. So budget is definitely important. Okay. So here the answer is in descending order, right? So you go. This should be the highest, then comes railways, then then comes railways, then defense, and finally, so you will go C, B, A, D. Second one is your right answer. Okay, so let us move on. Then the 52nd one says arrange the following steps in proper sequence concerning solution of a LPP. So what the CUET PG examiners have done, that they have somehow come up with a theoretical question even for linear programming. Okay, so I definitely did not expect this, but as I said, they are very focused on the theory parts, and you should be too. All right, so this is not difficult at all. Like, what do you do first when you are trying to solve an LPP? First, you draw a graph. So this is going to be first. You can already eliminate these two. Then next, what do? Do you graph each constraint, or do you find the feasible region? First, obviously, you are going to be graphing each of the constraints as though it were binding, and that is as if it held with strict equality. Okay, so you just graph each of the constraints, that is enough. And This is your right answer. Then you find the feasible region and superimpose contours of the objective function on the feasible region to determine optimal corner of the region. Obviously, that is your last step. So C would be last. So that is your answer. Then again a chronological question which says that you have these following theories from oldest to latest, you have to arrange them. So I did not attempt this in the actual paper when I was solving it, because before this year we did not know that in this level of depth they are going to be asking questions based on chronology. Okay, so from now onwards, obviously in the notes we have put in all of the theories and all of the economists with their year and what the book was and what their primary research is called, and so on and so forth. But prior to this, because we did not have an idea, so that is why all I knew was that this is an extension to the Heckscher-Ohlin model. Now obviously I'll tell you all of the years as well. This was developed in 1955, and if you look at the options, all they are telling you is that A comes first. So, like, I don't think there is a lot of elimination that you can do here. So that is why it was a very risky question to attempt as well. The product cycle model came in 1966. Technological gap came in 61. Okay. Specific factor came in late 1960s, so about 1970, you can say, I guess. The answer here was it was A, C, B, D. A, C, B. First one should be the answer. Let us move on. Then look at the next one. Again, the exact same thing. You have now scholarly contributions in their chronological order from oldest to latest. So now the exact same question, just based on welfare theories. So at least this one was easy. This one was answerable because of the options. Look at the options once. You should know, yeah, you should know that Pareto optimality or the Pareto optimality criterion, this would come before social justice. These are just basically welfare theorems that came on later on. The Bergson social welfare function, then the Kaldor-Hicks, this was much later. So that is why there is only one option where the Pareto optimality is coming first. So that is why this was answerable only because of the options. Okay, otherwise if the options had D as the first one in all four, then you should not attempt that either. Let us move on. Then the 55th question, arrange the following components of money aggregation. This is important. Also, another important thing is the M0, M1, and so on till M4. You should know all of these and what all they include. Okay. So here, obviously, the most liquid ones is this should be first. Then comes this. Then comes this, and time deposits you cannot take out till you have the maturity period. Otherwise, there is no point of the time deposit. You'll have to break and you'll get no return on that, right? So that is why your answer should be A, B, D, C. Then the next one says, which of the following statements are correct about the IS curve? It shows combination of interest rate and level of income such that money market is in equilibrium. Yeah, what are we doing here? Absolutely not. Remove every statement with A. You just have C and D or B and D. Second one says it is negatively sloped. Is there any doubt about it? You already have the answer. Don't even have to read the C and D statements. But still, let's read it. An increase in the government purchases shifts IS to the right. Yes, no doubt. The smaller the multiplier, more sensitive. Okay, I'll just write this down so that there is no confusion. If the slope of IS is written as 1 minus C upon minus B. Okay, where B is the interest sensitivity to investment. Alright. And this you already know is the 1 minus MPC or MPS, or you can write it as 1 upon the multiplier. What is multiplier? 1 upon 1 minus C. So 1 minus C is the reciprocal. Okay. So that is why you will see that the slope and the multiplier are inversely related. Slope of IS and the government multiplier are inversely related. Okay, so if it is saying smaller the multiplier, steeper the IS curve, that part is true. But it is also saying that more sensitive investment spending, which means when B is higher, then steeper the is curve. That is absolutely false, because you can clearly see that if b is larger, this would mean that this entire value will decrease, or the slope will decrease, and a lower slope means flatter is. Okay, so that is why this part is absolutely wrong, which makes the entire statement wrong. This is right. So your answer is B and D. Okay. Then the next one says, which of the following statements are correct about money multiplier? Okay, it is the ratio of stock of money to stock of high powered money. How do you write the money multiplier? M upon H. H is high powered money. This is money supply. So this is right. Then it is always smaller than 1. Yeah, this is the most logically you can answer this. That if the money multiplier itself is lesser than 1, there will be no money creation. Money creation is only because the multiplier is always like 3 or 4 in value, even in the numerical examples that we take. Then the third one says its value depends on reserve ratio and currency deposit ratio. The formula, another way to write it, you already know: 1 plus C upon C plus R, where R is reserve ratio, C is the currency deposit ratio. Okay, and it is inversely related to the reserve ratio. Absolutely, you can also write it as 1 upon CRR, right? So this is also right. A, C, and D. Third option is right. Then the 58th one talks about the life cycle theory of consumption, which postulates that consumption is constant throughout the lifetime. Here, first of all, this is not very, I would say, not the best phrased statement. And if instead of this they would just write that it is smooth throughout the lifetime, that would make a lot of sense in my opinion. But sure, we'll take it for now. Let us just consider this a gray statement. First of all, let us look at the rest of the statements. Marginal propensity to consume out of permanent income is small. That is literally the logic of the theory itself, that you consume a higher percentage out of your permanent income because you think that this is permanent. It is safer to consume a larger portion of that. That is why MPC from here is larger. So you can cut out every option with B in it, so you'll get to the answer directly. But let us just read C also. Marginal propensity to consume from transitory income is large, or again the exact opposite. When you get some temporary income, you will try to save more of that. Okay, so similarly, if it emphasizes how to maintain a stable standard of living over the course of life. Yes, and now if you read this again, you will feel like this is right, but not the best phrase again. Let us move on. Then look at 59th, the king demand curve. Very, very, very important topic. Again, the Sweezy model under the oligopoly, the price rigidity model, that is going to be important. So what can it explain? The level at which price will be set by firms to maximize profits. No, it does not explain the level at which price will be set. It will take the price as given, and from that, based on the elasticity of demand or the type of good, you can tell what will happen between the firms. Okay, you can judge the behavior of the firms. Then the level of price at which kink will occur as well. No, again, that is also not what it explains. Price rigidity in the face of changing costs. Yes, that is what we are looking for. The price rigidity in the face of changing costs and rivalry. Implications for volume of output owing to changing market demand. Again, if we are talking about the demand that shifts within the discontinuous gap of MR, then prices can stay rigid and the output can change. Okay, so that is why C and D are right, and your answer is 2. So this is a very important model and you should cover this in depth. Then the 60th question now, which of the following are applicable to individuals' expenditure function? It is homogeneous of degree 0. Absolutely incorrect. Fundamental property. It is homogeneous of degree 1 in prices. So basically, if the price will double, the expenditure will double, right? Then it represents the maximum expenditure to achieve a given level of utility. Absolutely incorrect. Yeah, expenditure hai, obviously we will try to minimize it, right? So the minimum expenditure to achieve a given level of utility, it is not decreasing in prices. Yes, that is true. If prices increase, expenditure increases. It is concave in prices. Yes, that is also a fundamental property. C and D is your answer. Then the next one says, which of the following are correct in context of monopolistic competition? Again, important. All of the market types are going to be important. Monopolistic competitive firms may earn economic profits, or absolutely in the short run they can incur losses or they can make profits. long run equilibrium position of a monopolistically competitive producer is far more efficient than of pure competition, than of perfect competition. Is that possible in any case? When we compare the monopolistically competitive market in any case, why? Because it will never reach the minimum of AC, right? If you remember the graph, the equilibrium is not at minimum of AC even in long run. Okay, so the firms may strive to increase demand for its product through product develop. Absolutely. Then consumers benefit from wide variety of product choices that monopolistic competition provides. Correct. A, C, and D. Then let us move on. Then 60 seconds says coefficient of determination. Again, very important. Even the coefficient of non-determination is very important. Okay, so it measures the correlation between dependent and independent variables. That is incorrect. Another thing is that if we write, first of all, write down the formula of it, that r square, which is the coefficient of determination, is written as ESS upon TSS, which means this is the explained variance basically, or it is the explained sum of squares. Okay, and this is the total sum of squares, or you can write it as 1 minus the residual sum of squares divided by TSS, right? So the total sum of these is 1, and that is why you can just subtract that from 1 to find the same value. So now a very important property is that in simple linear regression, r square, or the coefficient of determination, is equal to the square of the correlation coefficient, but only in simple linear regression. This is not permanent. So for example, if it was multiple regression or any other kind of analysis, you will see that this condition is not going to hold. So that is why the first statement is wrong. Then if you look at the second one, the residual sum of squares as a proportion of, no, as we have just seen, we subtract that value from 1 to get the explained sum of squares. Okay, then the explained sum of squares, yes, this one is absolutely right. So basically B and C were also contradicting statements, so you could have eliminated, so you had to eliminate one, so you could have used logic to eliminate B. Then last one says how well that sample regression fits the data. Yes, so your answer again C and D. Let us move on. Then look at the next one. If you read this question properly, you'll realize that even though they do not ask numericals, they just ask theory parts, but your conceptual clarity has to be on such a level that you also understand the numericals. Okay, otherwise, like for example, if you just read the third statement alone, you'll understand that the Samuelson property you have to know. So either you are like trying to understand the theory very well, or you have conceptual clarity using numericals, either one of those. Okay, so if you haven't appeared for other exams like jam or gate, I would advise you to build your conceptual clarity to a level that you can compete with the students who have an advantage over you because they have solved the numericals. Okay, so let us read it now. Statements are correct about contrast between pure public and pure private goods. The total provision of pure private goods is the sum of private consumption, whereas total provision of pure public goods is equal between individuals. Absolutely correct. This is just explaining what the total sum of these goods is basically. So the sum of private consumption, and it is just stating a property of pure public goods here, that it would be equal between individuals. The consumer in general will pay the same prices and consume different quantities of the good when there is efficient provision of pure private goods. Yes, that is true, that when there is efficiency in the private goods, then the prices will remain the same, right? But what about the public goods? The consumer pays different prices and consumes the same quantity of the goods when there is efficient provision of public goods. Yes, that is also true. That is a property, that is where the Samuelson theory will come in. Then atomistic markets ensure efficient provisioning for both private as well as pure public goods. Now what is this atomistic market? If we just try to understand this as a very small market that has no influence over price, and it has large number of buyers and sellers, does this look to you something similar to a competitive firm? or a competitive market? Does this look to you like something like perfect competition? If yes, then you already know that what happens to pure public goods in perfect competition, the free rider problem is going to arise. That is why these types of markets cannot provision the pure public goods efficiently, or they cannot provide the pure public goods in an efficient manner. Right? That is why this last statement is wrong. Uh, A, B, C is going to be your answer. Okay, let us move on. Alright, guys, so now let us look at the 64th question, which says that according to the law of comparative advantage, trade will not be beneficial for both countries if. So let us read the options. One nation is less efficient than the other nation in the production of both commodities. So that is not true at all if the opportunity costs differ and the country will have a comparative advantage in either one of the goods. Okay, and if one nation has an absolute advantage with respect to other nation in production of both commodities, this is just saying the same thing from the perspective of the other country. So this is also going to be true. So it will not be applicable for not beneficial. Okay, so then opportunity cost of producing both commodities is the same in both countries. Yes, if this is the case, then trade will not be beneficial for both countries. Then the absolute disadvantage that one nation has with respect to other nation is the same. Again, it is basically same thing, that the opportunity cost will be the same. Okay, so C and D are the options. So let us move on. So the 65th question says that in the Keynesian framework, determination of equilibrium interest rate also implies the rate that equates supply of and demand for bonds. Okay, so you know that within the Keynesian framework, the total wealth which we are writing as W is equal to M plus B, which means money and bonds. These are the two ways that you can keep your money or your wealth as. Okay, now you know that in the money market equilibrium, money supply is equal to money demand, right? Only then will the money market be in equilibrium, right? And right now we are talking about the equilibrium interest rate, so we are within the equilibrium condition. So for so when this happens, you are left with bonds, right? So indirectly you can say that when the money market is in equilibrium, there is no room for the bond supply and bond demand to not be equal, right? There is no room for excess demand for bonds or excess supply. So that is why the bond supply will also be equal to the bond demand. So indirectly, yes, you can assume that the interest rate is the rate at which the supply and demand for bonds is equal. Okay, and let us look at the next options. The rate that equates the supply of money and demand for money, obviously just the money market equilibrium. So just by this also you can eliminate first and second option, because B is right. So it is either that all four are right, or it is the third option. So let us read the C option. The rate that equates the supply of money and demand for investment. The investment demand inside of the money market equilibrium has no place at all. So this is clearly very wrong. The rate that equates supply of labor and demand for labor, again that will not make any sense that the interest rate is equating these two. Okay, so that is why third is the only option that makes sense here. Let us move on. Then the 66th question. You just have to match the books with the authors or the economists or their famous works. Alright. So first of all, in these types of questions, do the obvious one, do the easy ones. Stagelberg. Do I even have to tell you? Part of oligopoly, right? So that is why the option here is going to be the theory of market economy. It can also seem like the imperfect competition is the answer, but if you look at the options, 2 is matched with either B, or it is matched with D, or it is matched with C. In no option have they matched it with A. That is why you will say that the only other book that is mentioning market is this. So you will match Tackleberg with D. Okay, so D is 2. Alright, so you'll just directly get your answer with that. Even if you don't want to do that approach, another thing that you can see is Chamberlain and monopolistic competition, that you should know. That is very famous. The Chamberlain work on the theory of monopolistic competition. So even with that, if B is matched with 3 in two places, here and here. Okay, and then you can also go imperfect competition and Joanne Robinson. And what is the last option? This one is slightly tougher, FH Knight. So that is why you can either do Joanne and Chamberlain, or you can directly solve with just Stacklework. Okay, so that is why, yes, obviously, yeah, I'm not saying that these are easy at all. If like especially last year, when we had no idea that these types of questions will be asked. Now obviously it is very easy for you guys because of the notes that I've made for you guys, that it has every single economist and all of their famous works and so on and so forth. So now you guys have an edge, but I'm talking last year it was difficult. Then again, a very easy maths question. As I've said again and again, the maths ones are very easy. Open interval, just match it here. Then closed interval, match it here. So A is 2, cut these. B is 4. So now match with unbounded. Unbounded is what? Unbounded is this one. This one. Because this is bounded at B with its upper limit. But this one is not bounded at all. Okay, there is no upper limit on this. So that is why this one is unbounded, and half open is, where is it? It is this one. So C is matched with 3. C is 3. So 2 is your right answer. Very easy. Let us move on. Then the 68th question, this is also very easy. Just take your time and read the options carefully. If you just look at it and you get panicked and all, then you will find it difficult. But it is a very easy question. Weighted mean, just read every option one by one. You will see clearly the weights are multiplied in the numerator, and then we are dividing it with the summation of the weights. So A is matched with 3, and just by that you'll get your answer. A is matched with 3. Similarly, then B, even if you do not know this, that what this means, you can move on. Harmonic mean, you know that this is what you are doing, right? The denominator, this is what you do, and so on. Then you have the geometric mean very clearly, that you multiply it and you take whatever value is the number of variables here, so like uh, root n basically. So that is why the answer was D. Easy question, just try to figure it out yourself also, okay? Then 69th question, you have the nature of skewness for a distribution and relationship between aim, median and mode. So you already know that when you have a symmetric distribution, all of these are equal. Mean is equal to median is equal to mode. So D is 1. Match D with 1, you can cut these two. Then just draw the graph, you already know how to draw it. When you have a negatively skewed distribution and a positively skewed, which one of these is negative, which one of these is negative and which is positive? So this is positive and this is negative, right? So here you can see that this is the mode, this is the median in the middle, and then you have the mean. So when mode is less than median is less than mean, you have a positively skewed distribution. A positively skewed, mode is least here, positively skewed. Similarly, when this is mean and this is median and this is mode, so when mode is highest, you have a negatively skewed. So C is 2. This is wrong. C is 2 and A is 4. Yes, and B is 3. Moderately skewed. This is the formula that you have. You should remember this. And B is your option, or the second option is right. Okay, so let us move on. Then look at the 70th question. It says that you have to match the types of production functions with their functional forms. Okay, so just do the most obvious ones. No time to waste, no time to get confused. Translog, you see a bunch of logs. A is 4. So cut this and cut. Okay, you'll get the answer directly. To confirm, you can check for Cobb Douglas one, very easy one. So this is the one you already know the functional format. When you have two inputs, you write x, y, right? So that is why C is 1. So yes, C is 1. You have confirmed that as well. Just move on. No time to waste on this. So the next one, again, a match the following with concepts and their meaning. Very simple. Just some concepts from international economics. So let's start from the bottom. Hedging, you should know that it refers to the avoidance of foreign exchange risk or covering of an open position. Very easy. This is just the definition of hedging. So D is 2. Okay, you'll just get your answer then directly, and just confirm the rest of it as well. So foreign exchange swaps, you know, very, it is in the news a lot because India gets into a lot of swap agreements with its neighboring countries. Like Sri Lanka, it got into one in 24, or like in recent years basically. So it was in the news a lot. So it is a forward. No, it is not a forward contract. Refers to a spot sale of currency combined with forward repurchase of the same currency as the part of a single transfer. Yes, so these are just the definitions of these. It will help you to understand as well. So A is 3. Yes, A is 3 as well. D was 2. Then future and forward, you can just read that future is given as this refers to an agreement today to buy or sell a specified amount of foreign currency at a specified future date and a rate agreed upon today. Then futures, a contract for standardized currency amounts and selected calendar dates traded on an organized market. Yes, so let us move on. Then another match the following. This one is very easy. Seasonal variation. What is it? Just think about it in the context of agriculture, if you want, if that helps. So movement and economic variable that depends on time of the year, just season basically. I mean, it is just some time series patterns. So you match A with 3. So cut this, cut this. Then always try to use elimination. Okay, even if the answer is obvious to you, it will just try it will just help you in avoiding silly mistakes, and it will help you reconfirm what you already know in the exam hall, because there is a lot of pressure on us in the actual exam hall. Okay, so anything that helps we're gonna take, right? So then B is 4 is already matched. Random fluctuation is nothing but that happens due to unpredictable factors. Business cycle. What is a business cycle? It is a movement in economic variable that is periodic, so a cycle basically. C is 1. Trends is steady movement in economic variable over time. So C is 1. So first is your answer. Let us move on. Then again a very easy match the following year. These are just free marks. You cannot let these go in any case. So M1, just the definition of it. So this is just the most basic one. C plus DD plus OD. That's it. So match M1 with this. It is the most liquid. Then M2, uh, what you already had plus saving deposits with post office savings banks. So B is 3. If you just change that with net time deposits, that will become M3. And the least liquid, which is net time deposits plus total deposits with post office savings organization excluding national, this will just be M4. So that is why your answer is going to be B, right? A2, B3, B3, C1 and D4. Yes. Let's move on. Okay, now the 74th question. Now, this is a question that a lot of students could not attempt or did not attempt. But what you can do is approach this logically. Don't look at these values at all. Okay, can you solve this without even looking at the values? Just taking hints from the values, but not actually caring about the exact values. Okay, nobody is asking you to remember any value at all. So, fiscal deficit. If you subtract interest from fiscal deficit, what you get is primary deficit. Clearly, you know one thing, that primary deficit is going to be lesser than fiscal deficit. So, let us see what we can eliminate already. If you look at the first option, just start with the first option only. B, fiscal deficit is given as 5.7. I just remove this. Fiscal deficit is given as 5.7 and primary deficit is given as 9.2. So you can eliminate this one. Then the third one, let us look at first. B is given as fiscal deficit is 5.7 and primary deficit is 7.3. Again, you can eliminate this as well. And D is fiscal is given as 7.3 and primary is given as 1.2. Okay, that is very less. So now let us look at what else we can do. Now what you can do is, now we are just comparing these two options, right? So you can use multiple methods, or there is a lot of logic that can be used here. Okay, first of all, revenue deficit is a part of the fiscal deficit, right? Because you are saying that you are comparing revenue expenditure and revenue receipts, while here you are comparing the total. Okay, the only reason why the revenue deficit will be greater than the fiscal deficit is if in the capital account you are running a surplus in the budget itself, which means that you do not have any borrowings. Okay, and you do not have any sort of deficit in the capital receipts and capital expenditure. Capital receipts are greater than capital expenditure. That is not the case. That is never the case. Okay, so in our case, revenue deficit should be smaller than the fiscal deficit 100%. And in this option is saying that your revenue deficit is 9.2 and fiscal is only 7.3. So that is why you can eliminate this as well. Your answer has to be 2. Another logic that you can use is that the current account deficit is relatively very small to these values, because these are the total expenditure and the total receipts, while the CAD is nothing but just difference of your exports and imports, and that as a percentage of GDP has to be the smallest in, like, relative to every one of these. It has to be the smallest. So that is why CAD is also 1. So even by that logic, you can reach the answer directly. Okay. So that is why just logically you could have answered this. That is all I'm saying. It is definitely not an easy question, but it was answerable. Okay. So let us move on to the last question. It says that it is again a match the following. You have to match the state with its dependency ratio. Okay. So what is dependency ratio? Hmm? Dependency ratio. It is the number of dependents, the ratio of number of dependents to the number of people, or just the population in working class, or the working class population. Okay, this can be written as population aged from 0 to 14 plus 60 to 65 plus, okay, divided by the population aged between 15 to 59 or 64. Okay, this is the working class, and the above are the people that are dependent on them in terms of income, because they are not earning anymore. Either they are not old enough to work, or they have retired. Okay, so these are the people that are dependent. These are the dependents. Oh, okay, and this multiplied by 100. So this is just the formula of it. I'm just telling it to you for the sake of it, otherwise that is not needed here. So for example, if your ratio is 50%, that means that for every 100 people that are working, they have 50 people that are dependent on them. Okay, now if we look at the options, here you know that the state of Bihar, it has a lot of dependent people. Why? Not because they have a lot of old people, but because their fertility rate is high, and because we study demographics as well for the CUET-PG exam. You know that under the third phase, when there are low births and low deaths, a state like Bihar, I don't think that it has clearly reached that point. India as a whole is entering that point, but Bihar, there are still higher number of births. So I feel like you should be able to match it with the highest dependency ratio. Also, you know that there are a lot of people in every family there, and only one or two people are working. So that is why culturally and socially the state is backward, which because of which there are more dependent people, right? That is why logically, I'm just trying to answer this question for you logically, because we haven't read this data in the actual exam hall. Okay, how can you approach this? So that is one thing. If you do that, B is matched with first, you'll be still left with two options. Okay, now similarly, the case of Uttar Pradesh can also be made. It is not as much as Bihar, but definitely it is just lagging behind it in the same sense. So that is why D can be matched with the second option, which will give you the answer. Okay, and after that also you can confirm that A, Andhra Pradesh is the lowest, and Kerala is C is given as 4, 50.6. And the reason for Kerala is there are the birth rate is lower, but the older people are now getting more and more, because the death rates there are lower. So there are a lot more retired people there. So there are papers on this. You can find this data online as well and the reasons for it. But this is just the logical intuition that you can follow. Okay. So guys, that was the end of the 2025 paper. I hope you guys learned something from this entire video. It took me a lot of time to record, so I hope that this helps you guys in some way. Okay, the CUET-PG of 2026 is very close. About 2 weeks are left and all of the courses are live. If you want to attempt mock tests, if you just want the notes for extra help or whatever, every course is live. You can go check it out. That is all up to you, and the 2027 batches will also be out very soon. Okay, so that's all from my side right now. Best of luck and I'll see you soon.